From a young age, Alexander Blackwood had been captivated by the world of magic. He would spend hours poring over books about famous magicians and practicing sleight-of-hand tricks in front of the mirror. His parents, who were wealthy and loving, nurtured his passion and supported him in every way. Life was filled with wonder for Alexander, and he cherished the moments spent with his doting parents. They attended his first magic shows, beaming with pride as their young prodigy amazed the audience with his tricks. The love and encouragement from his parents fueled his dream of becoming a world-renowned magician. Tragedy struck a couple of years ago when Alexander's parents were killed in a car accident. The brakes had failed in the car they were driving, and their untimely demise left Alexander shattered. In the aftermath of their passing, he inherited their substantial fortune, but it was a bittersweet gift as it served as a constant reminder of his loss. Determined to carry on their legacy, Alexander channeled his grief into his magic. With unwavering dedication and skill, he honed his craft, performing on grand stages across the world. His shows mesmerized audiences, and he found solace in the applause and admiration of his fans. Amidst the glitz and glamour of his successful career, there was one person who stood out in Alexander's life, his loyal and captivating assistant, Amelia. As they spent more time together, their connection deepened, and they fell in love. Life seemed perfect as they performed side by side, their hearts beating in sync with every magic trick they mastered together. However, unbeknownst to Alexander, Amelia had a dark past. She was entangled with a cunning man named Victor, who had captured her heart before she had met Alexander. Victor had a sinister plan to exploit Alexander's wealth and fame, and he saw Amelia as a pawn to achieve his malevolent ambitions. Years ago, when Alexander's parents were still alive, Victor had orchestrated the car accident that claimed their lives. Cunningly disguising it as an unfortunate accident, he had escaped suspicion, leaving behind a grieving son and an immense fortune ripe for the taking. As Alexander's love for Amelia grew, so did Victor's obsession with destroying him. Both Amelia and Victor were driven by malevolence, and they conspired together to put Amelia in a position of power as Alexander's assistant. Knowing her affection for him, Victor believed he could use their relationship to control the illusionist and ultimately seize his fortune. And so, life appeared enchanting for Alexander Blackwood, the world-renowned magician, as he found love and success after the tragic loss of his parents. Little did he know that an intricate web of deception and betrayal was about to entangle him in its dark embrace. Throughout the weeks, Alexander and Amelia were working on perfecting their new headline act called the Disappearing Act. The stage was set, the illusion perfected, but behind the curtain lay secrets that would soon be unveiled. On the night of the Disappearing Act, the Grand Theatre buzzed with excitement as the audience eagerly awaited Alexander's awe-inspiring performance. The stage was adorned with glittering props and majestic curtains, adding an air of enchantment to the atmosphere. Alexander stood backstage, his heart pounding with anticipation and nerves, yet he was confident that tonight's act would be his greatest triumph. Amelia, dressed elegantly in a flowing gown, approached him with a warm smile. Her eyes sparkled with an intensity that Alexander had grown accustomed to, a look that once made him feel invincible. Little did he know that dark intentions had tainted her affection for him. As the show commenced, Alexander and Amelia's chemistry on stage was undeniable. Their performance seemed almost otherworldly, captivating the audience's hearts. Amidst the applause and gasps of amazement, Alexander felt a glimmer of hope that the night would be truly magical. As the moment for Amelia to reappear approached, Alexander's heart swelled with excitement and anticipation, just like in all their rehearsals. The audience held its breath, eagerly waiting for the magic to unfold. But as the time came for her to re-emerge, Amelia was nowhere to be found. In that fleeting moment, the theatre was cloaked in confusion and concern. The gasps of amazement that usually followed the vanishing act were replaced by murmurs of worry. It was clear that something had gone terribly wrong. Frantic, Alexander rushed backstage, his mind racing with a whirlwind of emotions. He couldn't fathom how she could have vanished without a trace. Time seemed to stretch on endlessly as he scoured every corner of the backstage area, desperately hoping to find her. Meanwhile, Victor watched from the shadows, his wicked smile hidden from the world. He revelled in the chaos he had orchestrated, confident that Alexander would be too shattered by Amelia's disappearance to see through the web of deception surrounding him. When Alexander finally emerged on stage, His eyes glistened with tears, and his voice trembled with emotion. He addressed the audience, assuring them that the disappearance wasn't part of the act, and that he would do everything in his power to find Amelia. As the curtain fell and the audience dispersed, Alexander was left standing on the empty stage, his heart heavy with shock and confusion. He felt like a magician whose most prized trick had gone horribly wrong, leaving him stranded in a world of uncertainty. As he made his way back home, his mind swirled with questions, and the weight of the night's events bore down on him. But when he finally arrived at his once beloved home, the sight that greeted him was beyond anything he could have imagined. Shock washed over him as he realized that everything of value was gone. The artifacts from his illustrious career, the family heirlooms. The safe, once securely holding wads of cash and valuable mementos, had been cracked open, and all the cash and treasures were stolen. His bank accounts had been drained, leaving him financially ruined. It was as if his entire world had collapsed in an instant. The shock of losing Amelia, combined with the devastating theft, left him feeling broken and vulnerable. Overwhelmed by grief and confusion, Alexander sank into a deep depression. He isolated himself from the outside world, struggling to comprehend how the love he had for Amelia had led to such betrayal. His heart ached for the loss of their connection, and the pain of her deception was almost too much to bear. In his darkest hours, a beacon of hope appeared in the form of his loyal friend, Matt. Matt refused to let Alexander drown in his despair, and he tirelessly worked to pull him back from the depths of his depression. He became Alexander's lifeline, offering unwavering support and understanding. When the time was right, Matt told his friend it was now time for payback, and the police couldn't do any more. It was now up to them. So together, they began to piece together the events leading up to the night of the disappearing act. They began to piece together the puzzle. Matt asked Alexander to think back to that night and recall anything unusual or out of place. Alexander's memory drifted back to the moments before the performance. He remembered Daniel, his stagehand, who had been part of the same crew for a few years, looking unusually nervous. It was peculiar, as he and the rest of the crew members were always composed and professional. This detail caught Matt's attention, and he encouraged Alexander to explore further. They decided to investigate the stagehand's background and connections, hoping it would shed light on the night's mysterious events. In their search for answers, Matt uncovered that Daniel, the stagehand, had been recommended for the job by none other than Amelia herself, soon after she had been part of his life a few years ago. This revelation struck Alexander like a bolt of lightning. He realized that Amelia had played a more significant role in the unfolding deception than he had initially thought. As Alexander and Matt finally tracked down Daniel, they could see the desperation in his eyes. His once confident demeanor had crumbled, replaced by the heavy burden of guilt. They knew there was no turning back for him now. "I can't keep living with this secret," Daniel confessed, his voice quivering with remorse. "Amelia is my stepsister, and she had me wrapped around her finger. She made me believe we were a team, but it was all a lie. She's in love with a hideous man named Victor, and they planned all of this together a few years ago." The revelation hit Alexander like a thunderbolt. He had believed that Amelia was a kindred spirit, someone who had no family and had sought refuge in the world of magic just like him. But now, he realized that even that was part of her deceit. "She pretended to fall in love with you, Alexander," Daniel continued, his voice heavy with remorse. "It was all part of their plan to get close to you, to gain access to your heart and your bank accounts. Victor killed your parents by tampering with the brakes of their car. It was all premeditated, and Amelia was right there beside him from the start." The revelation about Victor's sinister plan to tamper with the brakes of his parents' car left him feeling nauseated and enraged. It was a cruel and heartless act, taking away the two people he had loved most in the world. The knowledge that Amelia had been complicit in this malevolent scheme stung like 1,000 daggers. The weight of the truth bore down on Alexander's shoulders, his heart heavy with betrayal. The love he had believed was genuine had been nothing more than a malicious ploy to manipulate him, to steal his heart and his fortune. Matt's face mirrored the shock and anger that Alexander felt. He had trusted Amelia as well, believing in the connection she had shared with his friend. Now, it was all shattered by the revelation of her true intentions. "We need to stop them," Matt said, his voice filled with determination. "They can't get away with this." Daniel nodded, tears welling up in his eyes. "I want to make things right. I know I can't undo what I've done, but I can help you find them. They're planning to leave the country, but I can tell you where they're headed." With a newfound sense of purpose, Alexander, Matt and Daniel shared all the information they had gathered with the authorities. The police were alerted, and a nationwide search was launched to intercept Victor and Amelia before they could escape the consequences of their actions. The hours that followed felt like an eternity, the tension thick in the air. Finally, the call came. Victor and Amelia had been apprehended at the airport just moments before they could board their escape flight. Relief washed over Alexander, knowing that justice was finally within reach. He couldn't bring his parents back, but he could ensure that those responsible for their deaths and the betrayal of his trust faced the consequences of their actions. As Victor and Amelia were taken into custody, the truth they had so callously hidden was exposed for all to see. The illusion of their perfect scheme had crumbled, leaving them exposed as the villains they truly were. In the aftermath of the ordeal, Alexander found solace in the support of his loyal friend Matt and the knowledge that he had uncovered the truth behind the darkness that had enveloped his life. He was no longer the naive illusionist he once was. He had learned the hard way that not all magic was about smoke and mirrors. Some illusions could be sinister and deadly. But from the ashes of betrayal and despair, Alexander Blackwood rose like a phoenix, stronger and wiser. The stage was now set for a new act in his life, one where he would reclaim his magic, his identity, and his capacity to love and trust again. And as he faced the future with a renewed sense of hope, he knew that the greatest illusions were the ones he would create for himself, a life filled with wonder, resilience, and the power to overcome any darkness that threatened to overshadow the light within.